Welcome back to Crawford-Clark Close-Up, and thanks for bearing with us through lockdown in what has proved to be an unprecedented year. In this video, we're continuing our classic television retrospectives with a look back at one of the UK's most beloved comedy series. This year marks 45 years since Monty Python stars and at the time couple John Cleese and Connie Booth collaborated on Fawlty Towers, a show that itself was conceived following a stay by members of the Pythons at the Gleneagles Hotel in Torquay in 1970, where they were all stunned by the obnoxious nature of the hotel manager Donald Sinclair, and so Cleese's eccentric and constantly put upon Basil Fawlty was born. Cleese would win a BAFTA in 1980 following the transmission of the second and final series of the show for Best Entertainment Performance, and Fawlty Towers' 12 brilliantly written and performed episodes are arguably perfect vignettes of comedy. Whether it's Basil confusing Lords of the Realm with conmen, or dressing his help up as his wife when his wife walks out, unaware that he's pretending he's forgotten their wedding anniversary, each story is contained and fantastically funny. With that being said, here comes our ranking of all 12 episodes of this classic British comedy. Coming in at number 12, we have the aforementioned Series 2, Episode 5, The Anniversary. When Sybil thinks Basil has forgotten their 15th wedding anniversary, she storms out, oblivious to the fact that Basil has planned a surprise party with some of their close friends coming to the hotel. When the guests arrive, Basil has to improvise about Sybil being ill and gets Polly to dress up to look like his wife. It's certainly the most farcical of all Fawlty Towers episodes, putting it in last place in our ranking, though the anagram of the Fawlty Towers sign to read "flowery twats" still raises a big smile and makes you wonder how they got away with that in the 1970s. Next up, we go back to the second episode of Series 1 entitled The Builders. Basil and Sybil have the weekend off and are expecting builders to come into the hotel to make some changes. Sybil is expecting Stubbs, but Basil has arranged for the cheaper contractor O'Reilly to send his men over. When O'Reilly's men mess up the hotel, Basil has to get O'Reilly to come over in person to fix the mistakes before Sybil finds out, and then try and explain away the error to a furious Sybil. It's a great episode. There's just 10 better to come. Breaking into the top 10, we stay in Series 1 with the premiere episode of the show, first broadcast in September 1975. A Touch of Class is a fabulous introduction to the show, as Basil's contempt for guests, juxtaposed by his fawning over Lord Melbury, comes to a head when he discovers he's been had by a confidence trickster. One of the rare occasions when you genuinely feel for Basil. At number 9, it's Series 1, Episode 3, The Wedding Party. Basil tries to avoid the amorous attention from fruity French guest Mrs. Penoir whilst getting the wrong end of the stick regarding a whole family of guests staying in the hotel. There's not a great deal going on in the episode, but Cleese's physical ability as a performer is on great display here when he realises the mistake he's made. Number 8 is the finale of the show, Series 2, Episode 6, Basil the Rat. A health inspector is close to closing Fawlty Towers down if they don't sort things out. That's when Basil finds that Manuel is keeping a pet rat. Just when Basil thinks that everything is working in the hotel's favour, the rat appears in the cheese and biscuits. It's a classic moment, despite the fact that you can see it coming a mile off. At number 7 is Series 1, Episode 4, The Hotel Inspectors. Basil is eagerly anticipating the arrival of a group of hotel inspectors to visit Fawlty Towers, and he's so desperate to keep the hotel in the best hotel guide that he tries to sweeten up every guest he feels may be masquerading as an inspector. In doing so, he inadvertently ends up rubbing Bernard Cribbins up the wrong way and causing a scene when the real inspectors finally show. It's a brilliantly conceived story, and Cleese and Cribbins spar off each other very well throughout. Sitting at number 6 is perhaps our most controversial ranking so far, as so many Fawlty fans would probably have this in their top spot. It's the final episode of Series 1, The Germans. Sybil is in hospital with an ingrowing toenail, leaving Basil in charge of running the hotel with Polly and Manuel. A testing of the hotel's fire alarm confuses the guests as a real fire breaks out in the kitchen, leading Basil to knock himself unconscious, which leads to a hospital admission. Despite being very concussed, he breaks out of hospital and manages to make his own way back to the hotel to entertain some German guests in his own inimitable style. It's one of the more farcical episodes, but contains some of the most classic dialogue in all 12 episodes of the show. Whatever you do, though, don't mention the war. Into the top 5, we begin with Series 2, Episode 2, The Psychiatrist. Basil is excited to have 2 doctors staying in the hotel until he learns that they're psychiatrists, and he gets paranoid that they're judging his every move. He's also trying to look into one of the young guests' rooms as he thinks he's smuggled a girlfriend in. Basil gets his comeuppance come the end of the episode in one of the strongest episodes of the second series of the show. At number 4, it's Series 2, Episode 4, The Kipper and the Corpse. When Mr. Lehman, a guest staying the night at Fawlty Towers, is feeling ill, he retires to bed. Basil reluctantly takes old Kippers up to Mr. Lehman's room the following morning as part of his breakfast, and Basil believes that the out-of-date Kippers killed the guest off. It's then up to Basil and Manuel to try to hide the body from the rest of the hotel guests, including the older permanent residents, Miss Gatsby and Miss Tibbs. It's a lively episode with plenty going on, despite a largely simple premise. Just before we reveal our top 3, we want to know your ranking of Fawlty Towers. Let us know which are your favourites in the comments below, and let us know what you think of our ranking. At number 3, we have Series 1, Episode 5, Gourmet Night. Fawlty Towers is holding an evening for a higher class of clientele, but when the chef has a drunken argument with Manuel, it's up to Basil to improvise. This is one of the very best episodes of the show. Brilliant slapstick with a killer ending with the reveal of the duck. Runner-up in our ranking is Series 2, Episode 3, Waldorf Salad. Basil tries to cook dinner for an American couple when the chef finishes for the night, only it's a fiasco and the picky American guest puts Basil and the poorly run Fawlty Towers on the spot. Basil gives as good as he gets against the unsatisfied guests, and the byplay between John Cleese and the late Bruce Bower as the stuck-up Mr. Hamilton is superb. Plus there's a reference to my hometown of Dorchester, which always makes me smile. So we've made it to the top spot, and it can really only go to the first episode of Series 2, Communication Problems. Basil is at his most exasperated when a rude, deaf woman guests at the hotel, and Basil loses money. The writing on the show has never been better, and the thoroughly unpleasant Mrs. Richards is played by the great Joan Sanderson, and is one of the best guest stars in the whole of Fawlty Towers. Everyone always seems to think that there are more episodes of Fawlty Towers than there actually are, and whilst ideas ruminated over the years in John Cleese's mind to resurrect the series, these never came to fruition. But perhaps that's a good thing. Despite the 2 series being very much a product of the times in the mid to late 70s, Fawlty Towers ended on a high, and few classic comedies can truly boast such a thing. What do you make of our ranking? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and as always, don't forget to subscribe at the top of the page if you enjoy these videos and want to see more. Come and find Crawford-Clark Close-Up on Facebook and Twitter, and drop us an email with suggestions for future reviews on the channel, whether that be classic TV shows or films. It's crawfordclarkcloseup@gmail.com. Over the next few months, we're hoping to complete our James Bond retrospective with reviews of the Pierce Brosnan and Daniel Craig Bond movies, as well as presenting another season of horror reviews and a retrospective of the Back to the Future series. There's plenty still to come from Crawford-Clark Close-Up in 2020. For now, thanks for watching, and until next time, that's a wrap.